Hello and welcome to another episode of the Strategy Edge podcast, your guide to uncovering the pivotal role of emotions in the business landscape. In today's episode, we embark on an exploration of the economic impact of emotions and their profound influence on customer experiences in both the B2C and B2B domains. Join us today as we untangle the significance of prioritizing emotions in business strategies and discover how adept management, precise measurement, and strategic planning can shape unparalleled customer experiences. Joining us once again as our guest is Christopher Roberts, a seasoned expert in business strategy and customer centric methodologies. With a wealth of experience in decoding the intricate dynamics of customer emotions, Chris brings unique insights that promise to revolutionize our understanding of emotions in the realm of business. Let's get started with what I believe will be a very fascinating discussion. So, Chris, to begin with, could you share the significance of emotions in business and why should businesses be concerned about emotions and what economic impact does emotion have in shaping customer experiences?
Okay, so first of all, emotions is something that is very close to my heart. And the reason for that is it's often overlooked. It's almost like a best kept secret that most businesses have no idea about. But let me talk to you about the context of emotions in business. So what role does emotions actually play? And the best way to do it is to share a quote from Maya Angelou, who's a famous poet from the US. Maya Angelou says, people will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that is so true. I always talk about a coffee shop when I talk about customer experience, and there's a limit to how much you can make the coffee better, right? If you have a coffee shop, it's almost expected that the coffee will be good. And you can try and try and try, but there's a limit to how much you can make it better. And I remember once I was presenting, and someone in the audience said, "You're very right. There's a limit to how much you can make coffee better, but what you can make better is the relationships you have with your customers."
Right.
And the amazing thing is, when you talk about relationships, it's all about emotion. So let me give you an example of a coffee shop. You have a coffee shop where you walk in, and they know your name, they know exactly what sort of coffee you have. They give you a small little cookie with your coffee, complimentary. They draw a design, and they might even do things like, say, you come in one day and you look a bit stressed, and they go, "Hey, Keithana, how are you going?" So that makes a big difference. And if I had a choice between a coffee shop that just makes coffee and a coffee shop where I'm treated really well, then it's a no-brainer in terms of which coffee shop I would go to. Now, let me give you another example, like a B2B example. Some time back, we used to subscribe to a software solution. And the thing about the software solution is, honestly, it was dated. There were other solutions there that were technically better and functionally better. But we stuck around with this software solution for almost 3 years longer than we would have. And I'll tell you why we did that. We did that purely because of emotion, because the customer success manager we had, her name was Fran. She was so good. She went out of her way to help us. She always made us feel really valued. She was empathetic, all those wonderful things. And we just did not have the heart to leave the software subscription purely because of her. And then eventually we left the software company, and strangely enough, we left because Fran left before us. So that gives you the sense in terms of the power of emotion. Let me give you another example. So, um, this new Indian restaurant opened in our neighborhood called Indique, and we thought, oh well, let's check it out. And we went and we went to this restaurant and we looked up the menu. And the guy who was serving us was also the owner of the restaurant, and he used to work in the top five-star restaurants in India, where he came from. And if you've ever had food in India, you know that the food there is absolutely amazing. And if you go to a five-star restaurant, it's like next level. Yeah. So he came to us and we were umming and ahhing about the menu. And he said, "Where are you guys from?" And we said, "We are from Goa." And he said, "Oh, I know how to make this amazing Vindaloo. And he says it's not on the menu, but I'm a chef, and he told us about himself. And he said, I'll go to the kitchen and I'll make this special dish for you. Yeah, it's my favorite dish, and I'm sure you'll love it. So we looked at him and we thought, wow, this is the first time someone has offered to make a special dish for us. And sure enough, he went there, and around 20 minutes, he came out with this dish, and he says, tell me what you think. Since you all have Goans, I'll really appreciate your feedback. We had it, it was amazing. Now, that one little act where we felt not like a customer or a client, we felt like we were an invited guest into his house. Guess what the economic impact of that was the fact that we kept going there for lunch, and we must have gone there like 20 times. So the economic value of that one little incident, and we went on to become good friends. And and that's the kind of stories around emotion that make all the difference, and they have a common element in there. It's like when you make people feel valued and you make them feel cared for, and so on and so forth. But let's look at some hard numbers, right? So we've talked about the net promoter score in previous chapters of this podcast. So everyone knows the economic impact of NPS. Now, NPS, as you know, is a 200-point scale. And what we found is with certain emotions, like when people feel valued, or they feel cared for, or they feel supported, or they feel reassured, or whatever, it's relevant to every business. So it has to be tailored for every business. The NPS of the cohort or the segment that feel a certain emotion in comparison to the segment that does not feel an emotion is almost 70 points. Now that is huge, right? So it really becomes a case of, and we kind of discovered this because we've been doing NPS for like 15 odd years. We've been doing it across 20 different industries, and we've achieved NPS increases of up to 80 points. And this is one of our core secrets. You know, um, finding out what the right emotion is for a business, then getting teams together in terms of developing initiatives around those things, measuring it, and then managing it. But 70 points, let's talk about the economic impact of that. Now, we know as an example that if someone is a promoter, they're worth at least 2 to 3 times an average customer. And a detractor is worth one minus customer. Typically, when we've done customer lifetime value economics. And when I talk about customer lifetime value economics, I'm talking about, as an example, looking at the number of products they hold, share of wallet, loyalty, how long they stay with you, in if it's possible, cost to serve. But the fourth thing we look at is word of mouth economics. And my background is in banking, and we used to do the first three regularly in terms of customer lifetime economics, but we never really understood the impact of word of mouth. But we started measuring that. So when you take that total view, like I said before, a promoter is worth 2 to 3 times an average customer, while a detractor is one minus customer. And you say, how did it become minus? It's because while promoters become brand ambassadors for you and literally become your sales and marketing channel and get new business for you through referrals, detractors actually stop people from doing business with you, which is why it's best practice with NPS to actually call detractors back.
Right.
The second part of this, and I've covered this in kind of previous episode, is when you look at B2B in environments of external share of wallet. So we've got a few clients where their clients, their actual customers, can deal with multiple suppliers for the same products and services. Right? So we asked them, what percentage of goods do you buy from this company? And what we found is the link between NPS and external share of wallet is literally like for every 1 point increase, your external share of wallet increases by 1.25 to 3%. Now, honestly, that is actually a surrogate for revenue. So when you think about it, the economics are huge. And I suppose the next question you're going to ask me is probably, and I'll preempt it, is like, yes, there's a sense that it works in B2C. Does it work in B2B as well? Right?
That's right. So that's generally a very common belief that B2B decisions are largely pragmatic. So how does this work in a B2B concept? I know you did give the example of this one software company that you had an association with, but in the larger scheme of things? How does it work?
Yeah, absolutely. So the strange thing is the clients we deal with and the decision makers and the stakeholders all believe that their clients make very pragmatic, analytical type decisions. Price is a big factor, and so on and so forth. And I'm not saying they don't, and I'm not saying those are not important factors, but emotions plays just as much of a role. And the strangest thing is that the emotions for them are slightly different, but even like soft emotions like cared for work well in B2B as much as B2C. Um, but of course, with B2B as an example, there are some specific things that are unique to them. But there's this old saying that people buy based on emotion and then they justify it with logic. And many times they make decisions to do business with someone simply because the person that represents a company, like the account manager, has such a good and vibrant and positive personality that they want to be friends with them, and then they sign up with them for business. So it works in B2B as well as it does in B2C.
Great. So, Chris, I've read a couple of your articles as well, where you talk about planning the emotions that a business wants to deliver, and how do you measure and manage them. So, maybe if you can throw some light on this as to what is the process in which a business can plan emotions, measure them, and also manage them in their effort to deliver great customer experiences.
Okay, so there's multiple facets to your question. I'll kind of cover each one. So you talk about plan, measure, and then managing, right? Okay. So let's look at planning it first up. So there's no doubt that there are nuances by industry, right? So whether you're B2B, B2C, within B2B, what type of business you are, whether you're high involvement, low involvement, same thing with B2C, etc. So it does vary, but it does need external facilitation, which is what we do. So what we do in these, what we call creating your customer experience DNA workshops, is we get a few people together, and the people we get together are frontline facing functional heads, like sales, service, marketing, operations, etc. And and importantly, a sprinkling of frontline staff. And those frontline staff have to have a few criteria. They have to be very customer centric, very customer focused. You need to make sure that people who come for this don't have a little soapbox that they're kind of trying to promote and so on and so forth. But once you get this group together, the first thing we do is a journey map. So we get the group to actually imagine they're walking in the shoes of the customer and the exact journey that they would go through. Now, after we do the journey map, then we actually go to each touch point. Let's just say it is a service center or sales or a website or whatever. And we try to identify the key functional elements and the emotional elements with each touch point. So what do people want to feel? To give you an example, with a website, people want a website that is responsive, that has, enough information in there as an example. Those are key aspects of a website. With a contact center, it might be agent knowledge, responsiveness, so on and so forth. So once we actually work out the key touch points and the key functional and emotional elements in there, um, we then look at an overall customer experience statement. And I suppose this is the important bit. Good customer experience can mean 40 different things. It can mean you're friendly, you smile a lot, you pick up the phone quickly, your staff are knowledgeable, you're reliable, you're supportive, you're this, you're that. And if you try to do 40 things, you're not going to do any of them well. So we honestly believe that you need to have a very distilled customer experience statement with two or three functional elements and two or three emotional elements, and that's it. And you need to focus on those. Because you know what? Once you do that and you focus on just a few of these customer experience elements, you get the halo effect. The halo
Right.
effect is fundamentally, let's just say as an example, Keithana, I make you feel, that I really take time to understand your needs, as an example, correct? If I do that really well, then you're also going to rate me highly in terms of, you feel valued. when you deal with me, you feel cared for, you feel that I'm empathetic, and so on and so forth. So that is the halo effect at play. So we said few things, we distill it down to like three or four functional, three or four emotional, and that's it. So that's the planning aspect of it. So you go, well, this is the DNA of our customer experience, and it is unique. And any competitor is going to find it hard to manage to compete with you on that aspect because your DNA of your experience becomes completely different. And you'll notice, as an example, some brands, when you deal with them, there's a certain experience that you go to another brand, it's totally different. So consistency is key, but the uniqueness is key as well. So that's the planning bit. Now, it's one thing to plan and strategize, but if you don't measure it, then you can't manage it. So what we typically do in terms of measuring it is we ask some specific questions around the functional bits and the emotional bits, and we say, describe an experience and tell us how you felt. And based on that, we then look at it and say, okay, X percentage feel valued, X percentage feel cared for, so on and so forth. Now, from analytical perspective, like I said before, we then look at people who said, I feel really valued when I deal with these people versus one that didn't select that. And then you see the big demarcation and you see the big difference. So that's the measuring bit. And of course, with the measuring bit, you have to do sophisticated analytics where you actually link the emotion, not just to things like NPS score, but you can link it to loyalty. You can link it to how much referrals they give you, and so on and so forth. You have to be smart about how you do it. So that becomes a measuring thing. Now, the next stage is managing it. You might strategize, you might measure, but if you don't take action, nothing happens, right? The train does not leave the station. And there are a few key elements with this, especially when it comes to emotions. Largely, you're talking about transferring emotions from your staff through to your customers. So, in that situation, if you want your clients to feel valued and cared for, your staff have to feel that. Because if they don't feel that, they can't really transfer that emotion across. So, that old saying about before you try to engage with your customers, engage with your staff first holds very true, especially for frontline staff. Now, the second part of that equation you've got to understand is that um, your frontline staff know everything there is to know about your processes, your products, your policies, what works, what doesn't work. So you have to involve them in the process, but not tell them what to do. Involve them in the design and delivery of great experiences. So, for
Right.
example, one of the things we offer is our clients is a training course for frontline managers, where they facilitate a session where they literally look at a particular CX theme, like valued. How can we make people feel valued? And they get their teams together and they run very fast and creative ideation sessions, and we train them how to do it. So in like half an hour, they can come up with great ideas in terms of how to do it. And you know what? Without involvement, there's no commitment. So once you get staff involved, it's much better than telling them to do something. If you actually sell it to them and get them involved, then you get real commitment. You um, and that's how you manage it. And once you manage it, it's a circular thing. So you come up with the strategy, you measure it, then you see how you're performing, then you come up with new initiatives, and it's a circular thing. So and it just keeps going till you get better and better and better. Sometimes I get blown away by some of the stuff staff come up with, the clever ways they come to make people feel truly valued.
This brings us to the end of the first part of this conversation on episode 4 of this season on Strategy Edge. In this part, we've explored the critical role of emotions in business with none other than Christopher Roberts. His insights into the critical need to identify emotions that are critical to your specific business and the nuances of measuring and managing them to deliver exceptional customer experiences shows that it has massive economic benefits. In part 2 of this podcast episode, we dive deeper into the strategic aspects of prioritizing emotions and leveraging them for a competitive edge. Here's a glimpse. So, in your 20 plus years, of experience in the CX and the NPS space, How have you found businesses effectively measuring and managing emotions during customer interactions? Is there like any specific anecdote that you have, or any specific emotion that you have found that was very intriguing for you yourself? Join us in the continuation of this enlightening conversation with none other than Christopher Roberts, the Managing Director of Engage Strategy and the creator of the Total Engagement Model, and also the author of 10 Reasons Why CX NPS Programs Fail. Stay tuned.